It's Julie here from Black Isle Yarns. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm hearing whistling around. It's a really windy day here, so I'm hoping the power stays on and also the wind's not too disturbing. Thank you very much to everyone who joins me, and a special thanks to Sophie from Yorkshire Yarn Fest for organising today's event and for having me as part of the team. So I thought I'll start just with a wee introduction to what Black Isle Yarns is, and then I was planning to talk a little bit about some of the yarns that have gone into my Yorkshire Yarn Fest shop update, and then I had a couple of questions that were sent in during the week that I thought I would try and answer, and hopefully they're things that would be of interest to quite a few people, and there might be things I haven't talked about too much before. So thank you very much to all these people who are joining. I can see names popping up all the time. So I'm Julie, and Black Isle Yarns is a business based on the Black Isle, which is a small peninsula. It's not an island, it's just a peninsula to the north of Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. And I produce, all my yarns are produced by me from local wool. I buy wool each summer from several local flocks, either on Black Isle or just off the Black Isle. And I handpick all the fleeces that I buy to go into my yarns. So I go through the clip from each of the flocks, pick out the fleeces I want, and then when I get them home I skirt them, sort them into batches, and then send them off to one of 4 British mills, dependent on what yarn I want spun, what the type of fleeces is, how big the batch is, and so on. So it's a real case of matching up the fleeces to the mill, so that I can get the best possible spin from it. So all my yarns are completely natural. They're all from natural fibres. There's nothing synthetic in the yarns themselves. And I'm also a natural dyer, so my dye colours are natural dyes. And I collect, some of my dyes are locally collected and some are bought in. Sorry, I'm obviously very nervous this morning, even more than normal, so apologies if I don't make sense. I'm fidgeting frantically with this yarn. I'll try to stop fidgeting. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about some of the things that went into last night's shop update. And first of all, to start off with an apology about kosselig, which I suspect I'm not pronouncing that correctly. It's a Norwegian word and has been picked as the theme for Yorkshire Yarn Fest today. And it's, I believe, to do with the feeling of coziness and coming together and making yourself warm and safe and comfortable and happy through the winter. But there isn't a British or English translation for the word, so I don't think we can fully understand what it means. So I've done my best to interpret it by thinking about what I like to do best in winter, which is to go walking in the woods. And even though the leaves are off the broadleaf trees, I still think the woods are absolutely stunning, and there's wonderful colours in the woods in the winter. So I've tried to interpret the winter woods colours onto yarn, and this is my Ochen Sport. It's a woolen spun yarn, and I dyed it with alder cones, which are locally gathered, and also walnut hulls and cutch, and it's sort of shades of greys and browns and rusts in a tonal variegated yarn. I'm really sorry that I hadn't anticipated how popular it would be, and it disappeared very fast last night, and I know quite a lot of people were disappointed and hoped to be able to buy some, and I really don't ever want to have people scrabbling for yarn and then feeling that they've not been able to find what they would like. So I'm very sorry about that. What I think I'll do is set up a pre-order system at some point in the next week or two, so that if you didn't find any kosselig left last night, you'll be able to pre-order some, and I'll dye a batch for all the people who would still like some at some point, say by the end of February. Once I've worked out a plan, I'll send a newsletter, and I'll also mention it on Instagram. So I hope that helps, and I'm very sorry to those people who were disappointed. So that's kosselig on Ochen Sport. Now the next yarn that I had newly into the shop for Yorkshire Yarn Fest is Monkey Face & Co. So this is a very special limited edition small batch yarn. I've produced it once before 2 years ago, and it's made from the fleeces of a ewe called Monkey Face, and her two daughters who were ewe lambs and are now adult ewes. They are Stinker and Stinker Sister. And Monkey Face is unknown provenance. We're not quite sure. Jane, who owns Kilgarry, doesn't know exactly what she is, but she has a beautiful dark chocolate fleece. And then her two ewe daughters are crossed with a Wensleydale top. So there's a lot of long wool characteristics in their fleeces, and they're this beautiful dark molasses brown, almost black, with a few silvery, you can see that one there, a few silvery strands through it. So it's spun by the Border Mill as a 2-ply worsted spun 4-ply weight yarn at 335 metres per 100 grams. It is soft and smooth, but because it's a long wool Wensleydale, it is not a plump yarn. It's quite a lean, dense, strong yarn. So it's got drape, but it's not got sort of that plump characteristic that you get with a more rounded yarn. Now, last time I fully intended to keep some for myself and knit a skip with cardigan by Rachel Atkinson, and it's in her beautiful book called Volume 1 Beginnings. Rachel Atkinson is daughter of a shepherd. So I didn't actually keep any last time. I'm definitely going to keep some this time and knit myself a skip with cardigan. And you don't have to buy Rachel's book. It's also available on Ravelry I think directly from her website as an individual pattern. So that's Monkey Face & Co. I this morning added the remainder of the batch in because actually quite a lot of it disappeared overnight. So what's in the website now is all that I have of this batch of Monkey Face & Co. I hope I'll be able to spin another batch, but Monkey Face herself is getting quite old, and Jane told me she has made it through the winter, so I'm hoping she hangs on until the summer and we can have another clip of her. So we'll see if we get another spin of Monkey Face & Co in a couple of years. And so next, other new things that are into the shop last night. Now, I've had a couple of people mention this shawl. They're seeing this shawl that I'm wearing. It's called Radery, and it was published yesterday by Emily K. Williams, who's Flutter by Knits on Instagram, and her design name. Now, she's a local designer in Inverness and a friend of mine, and very kindly designed this shawl for me for the autumn for a collaboration I did with Harriet of Wildwood Stitches, and we had some winter boxes which included this specially commissioned shawl design, yarn sets, and various other things, including Harriet's beautiful project bags. So the Radery shawl has now been released as an individual pattern yesterday, and I have more sets for the pattern. So Emily has very cleverly made quite a huge shawl. It's 190 centimetres by 65, I think, out of quite a small amount of yarn. It works off very neat little double yarn over, starting as a single stitch down here and working up to the long border at the end. So there's 100 grams of pearl dyed with gallnut, 20 grams undyed, and 20 grams of cinnamon colour, which is dyed with fustic and walnut. So there is just enough in here to knit one of these shawls. You'll find them, what's that was the name of the Ostern again? Sorry, it's a question that I'm afraid I don't understand. Yeah, can you ask the question again? So yes, if you'd like to knit a Radery shawl, I have paper copies of the pattern, but you can also buy it electronically from Emily herself. And there are yarn sets on the website, and it's knit in Killen sock, which is my all natural sock yarn, 80% local Blueface Leicester and 20% mohair from South Africa. And also in the same listing on the shop are some other new sets, again in Killen sock, which would beautifully knit the Radery shawl, but were also designed for another newly released pattern this week, the With Love socks, which are designed by Simone Drager and are published in this week's edition of Knit Now magazine. They're absolutely stunning colourwork socks, and they take 100 grams of an indigo, 30 grams of the salmon colour, which is dyed with madder, and a 30 gram undyed skein. And you can knit. You could also knit the Radery shawl or any other kind of colourwork or stripy socks with these sets. I'm just looking at the time, it's going really fast, so I'm sorry. I'll go on to the questions I've had now. So one of the questions I had was, which are my least prickly yarns? Now, because I handpick all the fleeces and I'm very careful about how and where they're spun, I think in most instances, for most people, most of my yarns are not prickly, but the very least prickly of them, and it is subjective because everybody's got a different feel for these things, but the least prickly would be the Blueface Leicester Surrey Alpaca. So it's 70% local Blueface Leicester and 30% British Surrey Alpaca. It's spun for me by the Borden Mill. It's a beautifully soft, quite drapey yarn. It makes lovely cardigans and shawls. So I have a natural white, which actually I haven't brought out to show you, and a natural silver shade, which is made with the white Blueface Leicester fleeces and then dark alpaca fleeces. And then I dye over the silver, all the white. When it's dyed over the silver, because the silver is quite heathery, you get quite a heathery effect in the dyed yarn as well, which is very pretty. So that is absolutely suited to, well, all but anyone who is incredibly sensitive, but I would happily put this as a baby hat or a baby cardigan or something like that. And then the next, also not very prickly yarn, would be my Shetland. I have it in a DK and a 4-ply weight. And what's in the shop at the moment of 4-ply is all that I have left of the 4-ply until I have a new batch spun this summer. But the Shetland DK, there's quite a bit left in the shop at the moment, and I have some more that I'll add in the next few weeks. So it's a beautifully rounded worsted spun yarn by the Natural Fibre Company, all local Shetland fleeces, and it's just plump and smooth and squishy. The yarn for the Radery shawl is, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, is Cullen sock, and I do have sets, or you could use any, it would work really well with any kind of a sock yarn. Okay, so and the last question I had was, how do I work and what's my homework set up? I'm going to have to answer this quickly because I'm sorry, time's disappearing really fast. But I work at home. I'm sitting here in the kitchen. I have shelves behind me where all the yarn sits in these boxes, but wrapped up in bags and hidden away. My desk is just over there, which is still in the kitchen. The dining table is behind me with all the yarn on it at the moment. And I do my dyeing in the utility room, which is just over there. So that's why I don't tend to share it, because it's our home, and especially the utility room where I dye, it's not huge, it's not very beautiful, and it's really not very photogenic, but it works. One day maybe I'll have a fantastic studio or something, but at the moment I make it work, and I have yarn and packaging materials and things stuffed in cupboards and all over the place. But it means I can work at home. I've got 4 kids, one's at uni coming home today, one's an older teenager still in bed, one's an older teenager or younger teenager who's out at work, and the youngest one's out for a walk with my husband who's taken the dogs so the dogs don't bark. So I hope that answers the question I had about how I work at home and what my setup is, and that's possibly explains why I don't tend to show you any beautiful studio photo shots. If you have any questions, please just send me an email and I will do my best to answer them. My email address is mail@blackisleyarns.co.uk. Thanks so much to Sophie for organising Yorkshire Yarn Fest, and next up is Beehive Yarns. So I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and thanks so much for joining me. Now I need to work out how to get out of here, which I always struggle with. Goodbye, and thank you very much, everyone.